Oh, it's Mr. Behr! Yeah, it's that time of year. It's hot, it's sunny, and the berries are in season. And what do we do with berries? We eat them. Kitty actually got a full bowl of blackberries the other day. Black raspberries. Delicious. So the key thing at this time of year would be, if you're foraging or dependent on stuff other than stores for your food, is actually to get out with buckets after bucket and grab as many berries as you can wherever you are, as safely as you can. Eat as many of them as possible, and then dehydrate or can the rest, preferably both. So this time of year it's a little bit more complicated to get to water sources because things grow. So let's have a little look. I'd be comfortable drinking this water with minimal preparation. Let's find somewhere to sit, eh? Because Mr. Behr likes to rest. Don't you, Mr. Behr? He's grass eating because he had to be dragged here because he didn't want to go out. Recently, I can't remember who, was actually saying about taking water out of a stream.
It hadn't rained in a while over here, and that creek bed is kind of muddy right now. But I know if that creek bed is muddy, that I could dig down, I could dig into that bed and I'd be able to get some water. You know, I could dig a hole in that wet mud and it would fill up with water.
On their property. I think it was Abreva, a great channel, you should support him. One of the things I would actually recommend is you don't take water out of streams and rivers like this if it's at all cloudy, and his was very muddy. What you should actually be doing is digging on the bank downwards and then allowing water to come from the stream by the ground into the collection area. That's actually going to give you a little bit extra in terms of cleanliness and filtering. Will require more work though. I think this is the spot. So this is kind of an after action report on my first kayak trip of the year. In about 2 weeks, going with Kitty for 4 nights, 5 days, into a much wilder and more remote lake system, which I'm looking forward to. And it's a beautiful time of year and I'm busy and you're busy, so that's why I haven't really been focusing on prepping as such. Just showing the kayaking stuff and wherever I can, linking it to prepping. Be reassured, Thursday Fun and the Collapse series and my ongoing series on the Ultimate Survival Guide will be resuming very soon, as will the exciting end of Long Voyage Back. And everybody loves that one. I do, so there you go. That's why I do my channel. So yeah, I'm not becoming a kayaking channel, though there will be a whole bunch of kayaking videos coming up after the trip with Kitty. But what did I find worked and didn't work in terms of if I was bugging out by foot, by cycle, or by kayak from the kayak trip? Well, the first thing is water. I am remained convinced that tablets is the way to go, with possible boiling, in terms of bug out. I wouldn't take the BioLite stove with me unless it was the winter, and then I absolutely would. I wouldn't take a lot of tent with me unless it was the winter. I can make do with a little mosquito net and a bivy bag. Not great, but there you go. I would definitively travel at night, not during the day, except if I was very remote, and some of my bug out route is actually really remote. I would be looking for shelter in terms of garden sheds, abandoned cars, transformer stations, so I'm just tugging there, things like that on the bug out. So I would have a crowbar with me, probably a hatchet as well. So I found the perfect spot to do this, and now we have to move because Mr. Behr is unhappy. Keep the dog happy. As Abreva was also saying in that video, it's very easy to fake stuff, right? I mean, here am I in the wilds of Ontario, and literally there's a public park just there with a soccer and there's like suburban housing all around me.
But let me show you how easy it is. You know, you look at these videos that people make, and they they look like they're in the woods, but let me show you how simple it is to have a wood shot in the woods. Check this out. So I could come walking down here and look at that. This is how dangerous this is walking around down here. I haven't cleared this area. But you see that spider right there? See that? Look at that. I don't know what that is.
So I still think it's important to get into the wilds, but be a little bit more selective about some of the videos you're looking at. Be careful about them. Are they actually doing what they say? Look, a cliff. Hopefully Mr. Behr won't fall off the cliff. Go on, Mr. Behr. Because you should never walk on cliff edges because they can crumble. But anyway, alright, let's find somewhere else. Not down there, Mr. Behr, because down there would not be great, would it? Never be led by a bull terrier on a bug out. Behr is now hesitant about whether to go that way, that way, that way, that way. But if I headed back, he'd head off with a jaunty clip. Okay, Behr, let's go down there and see where we get. Come on. He's not that keen. You know what, Behr? We're going to start here until you get fed up. So that would be water, a small metal container, a small rocket stove that wasn't heavy, probably a hexamine to be honest for a bug out, except in the winter when I would go full on tactical to beat the weather and have the BioLite stove. Now food is going to be an important issue. You can't, in my opinion, bug out and forage and fish and trap and hunt as you bug out. I know a lot of people online seem to claim that that's the way to feed themselves during the bug out. For several reasons I think it's daft. The main reason is if you've got an extensively long bug out, bury caches along the routes, plural, and then make note of where they are, make sure you can find them if there's a fire in the area later on down the line, bury them deep or hang them high if you're in a frozen area like I am, because my ground here will be frozen 3 foot deep in the winter and I'm not going to get anything out of the ground here. Plenty of places where you can do that, just be putting it out in the deep winter so you know you can't see it, and then try and remember where it is, and that will give you some fun in SHDF trying to actually find where you hid everything, right? And that's what I would do with the food, and I would carry freeze-dried and Cliff Bars and stuff like that, and I probably would be arriving quite hungry. I think that's something we have to embrace, is hunger will be a common phenomenon. And I don't think having a cooked breakfast and a cooked dinner has any place in a bug out except in the winter. And in the winter, definitely carry a thermos flask and definitely be able to boil lots of water easily, quickly and stealthily. So you can drink tea and coffee en route that's warm, because cold is cold and Mr. Behr does not like it cold. The other thing of course is direction. It's very easy to get lost, especially when civilization's fallen, when there's no cars going on, you can't hear roads if you're in a forest, right? So you need to know where you're going to go, and you need to know the alternative routes. And you need to have alternative bug out locations as well, at least temporary ones, along the route. So if you need to, you can sit in place for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, even up to 6 weeks during the bug out. So we're talking about carrying a lot of dehydrated food, but also going into an enforced starvation period. In terms of bugging out by kayak, I think that's an excellent idea for anybody near water. New York for sure. Lots of other places have major river systems going through them. If you enter the river stealthily at night and after 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be a long way downstream and out of the city and out of the suburban area, and that's definitely worth thinking. Now if you're thinking of kayaking as a bug out, I would recommend it. There are inflatable kayaks, and I've often dismissed them. Now Pinetree Outdoors, Doug, actually featured one.
How's it going, Jamie?
Hey, where did you get here?
We are in Lake Wabagishick, Northern Ontario. Just kind of floating right now. I am in a Intex 2-man rubber dinghy, as I like to call it. It's actually an inflatable kayak. Quite popular amongst those of us who travel in small vehicles and don't pack
quite the same way as guys like that who have the old canoe. But anyways, it's quite serviceable. I bought it a couple years ago, and I've only actually been in it one other time. Works great. I mean, just kind of floating along here. Got some stuff in here. Jamie's got the rest of my camping gear, but so far so good. We're just taking off from the boat launch now. We're gonna find a spot to camp for the night, do some fishing. Now once again, Jamie has decided not to pack very lightly. We brought a nice comfortable chair for
something to sit on.
Well, yeah. We got some. We brought a little bit of wood with us.
Just in case. It's nice when you do bring a little bit of wood with you, because then you're not pillaging the area where you're camping.
An inflatable canoe, and he says it works really well, and it's not that expensive, so that's something you might want to consider doing. In terms of an actual old-fashioned kayak, you really do want the enclosed ones. The open ones to the element sound okay and they're cheaper, but sunburn's real, so is insect bites, and you'll get less of them in an enclosed kayak. Now, my kayak has the capacity to carry what I carry in it, not completely stuffed but almost stuffed, is a total of 55 litres of wet bags. Now, if you don't kayak, you won't know what I'm talking about, but if you kayak, you probably should know what I'm talking about, so figure that one out. And it has a couple of other areas, and I could, in a bug out, put lightweight rolls and stuff on top of it. So it's got quite a large capacity. It would be interesting as an experiment to actually fill the kayak maximally with food for an extended stay or an extended bug out. And I think where we're going to be, that's something that I will look at. We've all got kayaks there, and I think it's something we need to look at. We can walk the kayaks if we needed to in about 30 minutes to a major water area, and then get quite deep inland and away from people. That might be advisable in certain aspects of bugging out. Our plan, of course, is to bug in. So the other thing is defense, and like you'll have noticed in the videos, I was carrying a buck knife on my waist for the whole of the trip. That was not to pose as a bushcrafter. That literally is in case I'm not able to grab the bear spray and a bear hits me from behind, because these things happen very infrequently, but they happen. So that's why I was carrying the buck on my easy to access, was for that defense. But in terms of what I plan to do, not this year, maybe next year or the year after, I actually want to show what happens when you fire shotguns from kayaks, because I think that's an aspect of self-defense people haven't really thought about, is what do you do if you are kayaking and people start shooting at you. So that obviously won't be done in a public area, that will be done on property. I have to wait for the water level in the beaver pond to be large enough to do it, and it has to be hunting season and all the rest of it before I do that. But I would actually like to do that, to actually experiment a bit about actually discharging shotguns. The water there is deep enough for the kayak to move easily, but would not be deep enough when it tips for me to lose the shotgun. Pistols, people like to use pistols. They're completely inaccurate, really, above 20 feet for most people. I know everybody's going to start screaming at me at this point, but if you're standing braced and controlling your breathing and not being fired on, yeah, you can hit targets much more distance than that. But in an actual combat situation, a pistol really is a close defense weapon. I guess it would be better than nothing, and in most cases in Ontario, if you pulled out a pistol and fired off 1 or 2 shots towards people on the bank, you'd probably get rid of them very quickly. So when we bug out, we all estimate food at 2,000, 3,000 calories, and that's underestimating. Like hard graft, walking 11, 12, 13 hours, 15 hours a day, you're going to need about 4,000 calories. So what I'm going to focus on is carbs and fats for a bug out, not proteins. Proteins have a different effect. You can get away with skipping protein for quite some time, and protein tends to go off faster than carbohydrates, and not as fast as fats, of course, but fueling yourself with carbohydrates and fats and having adequate drinking water is absolutely essential. And like I said, I'm really, really blessed because I have tons and tons and tons of pretty easily treatable drinking water pretty much everywhere that I would ever be during a bug out or bugging in or at a bug out location. And obviously, as somebody said online, if you're in a desert, that's a whole different ball game, and water becomes like water and shelter from the sun and becomes the #1 protective issue. Here, for most of the year, my #1 issue is going to be security and food. 2 issues. But in the winter, shelter will become my #1 priority. I have to move somewhere else now because Mr. Behr's getting very, 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 very fed up. Aren't you, Mr. Behr? Mr. Behr, Mr. Behr. So this is where we fetched up. The park that was literally 10 feet away from where I was filming in the wilds. If you hear any noise, there's some girls playing football, which is kind of nice because people should play football and they should get out and do stuff. And it's got not bad skills. Anyway, so I really enjoyed my kayak trip, but it wasn't as good as I expected it to be because I did expect Kitty to come with me and she couldn't at the last minute, so I was on my own and it was a little bit lonely. Oh, Behr. Come on. One of the things to think about as you walk around with your dog is neighbourhood survey. Neighbourhood survey says Canadian Pacific Emergency Response Vehicle. That's the railway line. So I would expect to find crowbars, pry bars, shovels, all sorts of goodies in there. Depending on the SHTF, that van might be sitting in that driveway and there might nobody at home. Just along from our street we have an actual animal rescue van that the guy works for Animal Rescue. Great source of traps. So I don't know where you live, but where I live, basketball nets are pretty common in the environment. And whether they're out or not, the garage would have sand, which you could use for a filter. And a lot of the bases, not a lot of them, will actually be full of water. Not exactly potable water, but if you're absolutely desperate in a non-water zone, consider unusual places that people put water. A foraged apple. Little tart. That's the thing. Certain times of year, you can eat okay in Canada. Most of the year, not a sausage to be had. Not even a vegan one. So when it's a time of plenty, up before dawn, work until dusk. Gathering, chopping, dehydrating or canning. Literally, you have to feed yourself, right? I give the rest of this to Behr. He deserves it after that walk. So that's it for me. I'm going to put the air conditioning on, cool the place down and enjoy myself. And I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, I'm not going to become a kayaking channel, but I do enjoy kayaking. And I like to share on my channel those things that I enjoy doing. And I enjoy kayaking. So, remember in SHTF, tomorrow will always be worse than today, unless you prepare. And enjoy yourself. It's a very special toodles for Anne. Ciao.